I just purchased the Hueforge software in order to make some 2D images into some 3D prints. And so this is my first attempt at using this. I'm wanting to make some Christmas ornaments for my neighbor. And so I thought I would record the process while doing this, mainly so that will help me to remember how to do it the next time I want to do this. And so I hope you enjoy the video. All right, in this part, I'm using my image editing program to just put an oval around the face because I'm going to want to make this to be a Christmas ornament. And so I'm applying a round mask, which is actually more of an elliptoid mask, and I'm sizing it around the face to be the way I want it. And then as soon as I get it to be the size that I want, I am going to invert the mask. And once the mask is inverted, I am going to go ahead and paint it a white color so that we just have the oval, and then save it as a JPEG file. And now you'll want to go to the PixLR website, open your image. You can go ahead and close that window, and we are going to do the cutout and AI cutout to get rid of that cropped edge. And then when I try and save it here, I've already saved too many images, and so I'm going to open up a new browser. Okay, and so now I've closed Firefox and opened Chrome, and I'm going to repeat the process that I did. And now I'm going to save it as a transparent PNG file. And so I will just save this. And then once it's saved, we're going to go to Hueforge. All right, now I have opened up Hueforge, and I want to add some of the filament that I'm going to use. I'm going to use 3 filaments, and I'm going to look at the Bamboo Basic and just use that as my base. So I'm going to use black, I'm going to use gray, and I am going to use jade white. And so you notice those are all up in the owned section now. So I'm going to come up here to File, I'm going to open a file, and I'm going to open an image. And I am going to open that image, the PNG image that we just made. Now I'm going to want to change to the colors that I'm already using. So I'm going to use these first 3 colors, and I want to go from darkest to lightest. And so I am going to set this 4th one down to 0, and then I'm going to click on the 0 so that these zeros turn gray. And so that's telling me I'm only using these 3. Now I want to change the colors, so I'm going to right click, set the filament, owned, PLA, and we're going to start with the Bamboo Basic black. Same thing with this, right click, set the filament, owned, PLA. We're going to use the gray here. Then I'm going to right click, set the filament, owned, PLA, and white. And so now this is what our image is going to look like. Now I don't want it to be as big as it is. I'm going to set the width here to 100. So that will size it so that it will be a good size for an ornament. And I like this the way it is. This looks like it is going to look pretty good. So I'm going to come up here, I'm going to come File, Save Project As, and I'll just give it a name. Then I'm also going to export the STL. And I'll just replace the one I've already saved. All right, the information on how you're going to slice your file is contained in this box right here. And if you click on Describe, this is going to show you the settings that you're going to need to put into your slicer. All right, now we are in Bamboo Studio. We're going to come up here to File, Import, and we're going to import the STL file we created in Hueforge. And so that is this one right here. Now we want to make this into an ornament, so I'm going to want to place a hole right here. So I'm going to right click on this, I'm going to add a negative part, and then I'm going to add a cylinder. Then I'm going to click and drag it up here, centered it about where I'm going to want that hole to be. And I'd say probably about like that would be good. Then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to scale it. I want to make sure uniform scale is unchecked. I'm going to set the X and Y to 4. Then I'm going to select move if I want to kind of fix what I'm doing here. And then we are going to make some changes. And so based on those settings, these settings that we have, we are going to want to set a layer height of 0.08 millimeters. Come up here to global. We want to change this to 0.08, high quality. We want to set our initial layer to 0.16. And then it tells us we also want to have 100% infill. So I'm going to come over to strength. We're going to change this 15% to 100%. It tells me it doesn't support gyroid infill at 100%. So I'll just say yes to change it to the rectilinear. And then I want to make sure that my filament is set here. So we've got Bamboo PLA Basic Black in position 1. Position 2 is PLA Basic Gray. Position 3 is Bamboo PLA Basic White. And so now I'm going to go ahead and slice. Now we're going to want to tell the slicer when to change the filament. So when we look at this, you can see at layer number 8, we're going to change to gray. And at layer number 13, we're going to change to the white. So I'm going to click and drag this up to position 8, right click, change the filament to gray. And then drag it up to 13, right click, change the filament to white. Then I'm going to click and drag this all the way back down again, and let's reslice. And so this is what the finished product is going to look like. We've got our hole here to put our strings so that we can hang it as an ornament. And so now what we'll do is we'll send it to print. We'll tell the AMS which position those particular color filament are in. My printer is busy right now printing another copy of this, but when it's finished, we can go ahead and send this in. All right, and on my Bamboo printer, I don't actually have all Bambulab filament. So the white, I am using the Bambulab PLA white, but for gray, I'm using a Creality gray. And for black, I'm using a Sunlu high-speed PLA black. And so I am going to slice it as if it is the Bambulab PLAs. But even though I have sliced it as the Bambulab PLAs, on the actual device tab under the AMS settings, I have got them set where I have determined the K factor for the actual filaments. So for my gray and for the black, I did do flow calibrations on that. And so I do have them correctly set in here, but on the prepare screen when I sliced it, I've set them as PLA basic. And as an experiment, even though Hueforge says to print this out at 100% infill, I'm going to change this back to 15 and back to gyroid. I want to see the difference this makes. So I'm going to slice this. I'm going to go ahead and export the plate sliced file so that I have it for future. And so this one is 15 infill. And we'll see the difference that it makes when it's printed out with a lower infill. And the difference between the 15% and the 100% infill is really negligible in both the amount of filament that's used, the amount of time it takes, and also the appearance of the final product. So I would suggest continuing with 100% infill. Now in my case, both of my Bambulab printers have AMSs, but if you don't have an AMS, what we're going to do here is we're going to delete the color changes, and you're going to accomplish the same thing with the pause. So the first one where we're going to swap to gray is at position 8, so we're going to right click and add a pause. And then the next one is at layer number 13, right click, add a pause, and reslice. And now this way, once you do slice it, when you add the pause, it's not going to really show you the color changes like it did if you had an AMS, because it has no idea what you're going to do at the pause. But when the printer gets to this point, it's going to pause, and then you can actually change the filament at that and then resume and just manually purge it until it becomes the color that you want. And doing it manually can actually even save you some filament because you can visually watch to see when all of the old filament has been purged out and you're now at the new filament. And so this is the way you can do it if you need to manually pause if you don't have an AMS system. And similar things also if you have different slicers for different 3D printers. Just however you put the pauses in there for whatever printer you're using and for whatever slicer you're using.
Okay, and here's an example of where the printing has been paused on my A1 Mini. So I'm just going to dismiss this message. I'm going to go to filament. Oops, I got to go to the external spool and unload the filament. And so it's going to heat the nozzle and give me the chance to change out the filament. All right, it has cut the filament, and so now I'm going to come behind here and pull out the filament that I have coming in the manual feed. And I'm going to replace the black with the gray. Okay, I've pushed the gray filament up, and then I'm going to click load. And then I'm putting some back pressure on the filament in the back here as it heats up the nozzle. And then I'm also going to watch for that to start circling. That's an indication that the extruder is pulling the filament up. All right, now it's pulling up the extruder. And I like to retry until I start seeing the new color come through. And so I'm going to press retry. Because it's still coming out as black. And so now I'm going to press done, and it's actually going to start purging the filament. I'm going to get some tweezers and kind of push that out of the way. Okay, now that it's been purged, I'm going to go ahead and hit return, and then I'm going to press the resume button, the play button up here. And now it will resume with the next color, and then it will pause again when we're ready to change to white. And that is how you would do the manual changes on a system that does not have an AMS.